Hello, it's week 30 of season 6 of the Andy Griffith Show. It's the last week of the season, and the episode title is A Singer in Town. Brandy, what's going on this week? Goodler is fixing Ultie's bicycle down at the filling station, and a real fancy sports car pulls up to one of the taunts, and the driver gets out and says, "Interrupt. This isn't like any kind of a car that anybody's ever seen in Mayberry before." And the driver tells Ultie that he can go sit in it, and then he tells Gooder that he can sit in it after Ultie. And this stranger says that he's on his way to Raleigh, that he still has a couple of extra days, and he asks whether there's any good fishing around here. And Gooder says there sure is. Hopkins Lake. It's good trout fishing. And then Ultie sees the guy's name on his guitar case, Keith Hazelton. And Gooder and Ultie are real impressed. They say they never miss his TV show, and Ultie even says he's got 3 of his records. And Goober tells Mr. Hazelton where the hotel is, and then he takes his turn sitting in the driver's seat after Obie gets out. And then he very excitedly goes to the barbershop and tells Andy and Floyd, who are sitting in there, who's come to town. And Floyd wants to have a celebration and give Keithie a key to the city. And Andy says no, he's just here to fish. We shouldn't bother him. And Gooder says he's going to take a picture of him. And Floyd says he wants one too. And Andy says don't worry him to death. And then Andy heads home to lunch. Meanwhile, Ultie is telling Aunt Dee and Clara the news at home. And they say they really like him too. And Clara is saying how his song, Texarkana in the Morning, really did wonders for the growth and tourism of the city of Texarkana. And Aunt Dee says, "Too bad Mayberry doesn't have a song." But Opie says we do, sort of, Aunt Bee. You and Miss Edwards wrote and sang that song, My Hometown, at the Mayberry Flag Day celebration, and people applauded, and you all did an encore. He says you should sing that song, or show that song to Keevy Hazelton. Yeah, Ultie says maybe Mr. Hazelton will sing it on TV. And then Andy comes in for lunch. And first Clara and Aunt Dee get him to agree that the song they sang on Flag Day was good and that it sounded professional. And then Aunt Dee says she and Clara want to have Keevy Hazelton over for pot roast and to tell him Ultie's idea. And Andy says no, he's just here to fish. You can't ask him to listen to your song. And they say, we won't ask him. We want you to ask him, Andy, as a demonstration of your civic pride as sheriff. And he says no. So Aunt Dee says, okay, Clara and I will ask him. And he says, okay, I will ask him. But Andy says Mr. Hazelton might not be able to come over. And then he goes to the hotel to try to find him. And there are all these teenage girls hanging around there, hoping to catch a glimpse of him. And Gooder is there too, waiting to take his picture. And the desk clerk says he's out fishing. But then Mr. Hazelton comes in. And Goober bugs him to take a picture, and then all the girls want an autograph. And then Goober has the clerk take another picture of him with Mr. Hazelton putting his arm around him. And then Andy is waiting for him over by the staircase. And he says, my aunt wants you over for supper, but if you can't make it, that's fine. And Keithie says, no thanks. And Andy says, that's fine. But then Ultie comes in, and he asks him to reconsider. And he says, my Aunt Dee is serving pot roast, and the diner's having chicken croquettes, and they're terrible. And he says how much his Aunt Dee and Miss Edwards think he and the song Texarkana in the Morning are both wonderful. So Keithie changes his mind, and he says yes. And after supper, Aunt Dee asks Keithie whether non-professionals ever submit songs to him, and he says, yeah, all the time. And then he says, sorry, he's tired. He's going to have to eat and run. But Aunt Bee says, no, we haven't entertained you properly. So, but Andy says, no, Mr. Hazelton wants to go. But she forces the issue and then has him sit down, and then Clara sits there at the piano. And they start singing their song, My Hometown. But by the end of it, Mr. Hazelton has fallen asleep. And later Aunt Dee gripes to Andy that her song didn't have a chance. And Andy says, well, you're just going to have to forget it now. But Dee says, no, Clara and I are going over to see him. And this time they're taking Clara's nephew, an accordion player, to play with them. And Andy says, no, but they go anyway. And they barge in on him while he's in his bathrobe in his hotel room. And they pitch their song to Keithie again, and this time to his manager, who's also in the room. And Then afterwards, the manager takes Keevy aside to another room and says, "Now wait a minute. With our arrangement of this song, and with you introducing these two ladies on your live show, this could be a good lift for us and for our ratings. You know, remember the sponsor has been saying he wants to see something new out of you." And Keevy still says he doesn't know. And the manager says, "Just leave it to me." So Anthony and Andy and Clara hear the good news, and then later they go up to his TV studio in Raleigh. But in rehearsal, they see that Keevy has done a rock music arrangement of the song, complete with 3 go-go dancers. And Clara and Dee don't like it at all. They say you can't do our song that way. But Andy and Ulti like it, and they say it'll be fine. But Aunt Bee insists, no, you cannot do our song that way. You're going to have to do it our way. And it's less than an hour to the live show, so Mr. Hazelton gives in. And on the live show, he introduces Aunt Bee and Clara. And then he sings it slow, like a ballad, with the 3 guitarists giving backup vocals. And everybody likes it, and Keevy says it was better this way than he thought it would be. And the manager says the switchboard is lighting up with complimentary phone calls. They're saying they like this new Keevy Hazelton. So he says he's grateful to both Aunt Bee and Clara, and he kisses both of them. And then he gets a lot of fan mail, and Aunt Bee and Clara get a lot of fan mail too. And then they start writing a new song, this time about the city of Venice. We'll see you next week to start season 7.